He ruined the contract. Fire him immediately. The shout echoed across the large lobby. Employees scattered to the sides as if afraid of being implicated. A man clutched a small box of belongings, hands trembling. The manager threw a stack of documents on the desk. Will you admit fault or not? He closed his eyes. I'll admit it. No one knew he was being forced to take the blame. The elevator doors opened, yellow light casting on his defeated appearance. The sound of high heels stopped right behind him. A low female voice, soft yet sharp. If you didn't do it, then who did? Then the words that made his heart stop. Come with me. Ethan Ward, 35 years old, single dad, lived with his son Noah, 7 years old, worked as a low-level office employee, quiet, had once been a good husband, but his wife died in an accident. The female lead, Isabella Hart, 31 years old, cold CEO, intelligent, famous as the Ice Queen, but inside was an old wound about family betrayal. Ethan worked 3 small jobs to support his son, always patient with everyone, even when looked down upon. His company was about to sign a major contract, but a deceitful manager blamed him for incorrect documents. Ethan accepted the blame so no one else would be implicated, knowing he would lose his job. When fired, he remembered his promise to Noah, "Dad will always try." Just leaving the company, he was devastated, didn't know how to pay rent. Isabella, the company's CEO, had overheard a secret conversation between managers. Good, he'll take the blame. Isabella was suspicious and called Ethan. She led him to a conference room on a high floor where only the two of them were. Ethan was awkward, not understanding why the CEO cared about him. Isabella looked at his file, said, "You're not the one who made the mistake." Ethan stayed silent, surprised but didn't dare argue. She said the words that made him choke up. "I trust people who take responsibility instead of blaming others." Real person's mark, end of Act 1. Noah had left in Ethan's pocket a crumpled paper. "Dad is the best person in the world." Isabella saw the paper fall out, creating the first emotional impact. The conference room was pristine, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture worth more than Ethan's annual salary. He felt completely out of place, this janitor turned scapegoat sitting across from the woman who controlled everything. Isabella studied him with sharp eyes, the kind that missed nothing. "Tell me what really happened," she said, not asked. Ethan hesitated. Years of being at the bottom had taught him that honesty rarely helped, but something in her gaze, a flicker of genuine curiosity rather than judgment, made him speak. "The Morrison contract. I was responsible for data entry, but the calculations were wrong. Mr. Preston said I'd made errors that could cost the company millions." "And did you?" Isabella leaned back, fingers steepled. "Make those errors?" "No, ma'am, I triple-checked everything. I always do. But Mr. Preston showed me the final document, and the numbers were different from what I'd submitted." "Different how?" "The profit margins were calculated using old tax rates, but I'd used the new ones, the ones that went into effect last quarter. Someone changed my work." Isabella's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Why didn't you say this downstairs?" "Who would believe me? Mr. Preston is a senior manager. I'm nobody. And he said if I fought it, he'd make sure I never worked in this city again. I have a son. I can't afford to be blacklisted." The pragmatic desperation in his voice rang true. Isabella had spent years learning to detect lies, and this man wasn't lying. He was just exhausted, defeated by a system designed to protect people like Preston at the expense of people like him. "What's your son's name?" she asked, changing direction. "Noah, he's 7, smart kid, too smart sometimes." "You take care of him alone?" "His mother died 3 years ago, car accident. It's been just us since." No self-pity, just fact. Isabella recognized that tone. She used it herself when discussing her family. Don't dwell, don't feel, just state and move on. "Mr. Ward, I'm going to look into this situation. In the meantime, I'm offering you a temporary position as my personal assistant. The pay is significantly better than what you were making." You'll work directly with me, which means no one can retaliate against you without my knowledge. Ethan stared. Why would you do that? Because I've built this company on merit, not politics. If Preston is framing you, he's undermining everything I stand for. And if you're telling the truth, which I believe you are, then you've just proven you're exactly the kind of employee I want to keep. She stood, extended her hand. Do we have an agreement? Ethan looked at her hand, then her face. Saw no deception, no hidden agenda. Just a woman who, for reasons he couldn't fathom, had decided to believe him. He stood, shook her hand. Yes, ma'am, thank you. Call me Isabella when we're alone. Ms. Hart in public. And Ethan? Yes? Don't thank me yet. You're going to earn that salary. Isabella offered Ethan to temporarily work as her personal assistant until the investigation was completed. Ethan hesitated but accepted because he needed money to support his son. During their working days, she realized Ethan was different from others. No flattery, no exploitation, no complaints. She was curious when she saw him always taking advantage of breaks to FaceTime with Noah. One late afternoon, Ethan had to pick up Noah early because he had a slight fever. Isabella drove them home herself. Ethan's small, warm apartment surprised Isabella, a completely different world. Noah gave her a homemade cookie, smiling brightly. Are you my dad's friend? Isabella froze. It had been so long since anyone had baked something for her. The simple dinner with spaghetti moved her because it had been so long since she'd sat at a warm table. Ethan told her about losing his wife and being afraid of one day losing Noah too because of poverty. Isabella shared that her family only saw her as a profit-making machine. No one truly cared. Both didn't say much, but the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable at all. When leaving, Isabella realized she was genuinely smiling. Real Person's Mark, end of Act 2. Noah tucked into Isabella's bag a drawing. Dad, Noah, Miss Bella. She stood still, kept the drawing in her wallet. The days working together developed a rhythm. Isabella would arrive at the office at 7. Ethan was always there by 6:30, coffee ready, reports organized. He anticipated her needs before she voiced them, not through obsequious hovering, but through genuine attention. It was disconcerting and comforting in equal measure. You don't have to come in this early, she told him one morning. I know, but Noah's bus doesn't come until 7:15. I drop him off and come straight here. More productive than sitting in my apartment. He paused. Unless it bothers you, I can wait outside until 7. No, it doesn't bother me, Isabella said quickly. Too quickly. Ethan gave her a slight smile, the first real one she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. She found herself wanting to see that smile more often. The investigation into Preston was progressing. Isabella had her head of security pull records, compare documents, track changes. The evidence was damning. Preston had indeed altered Ethan's work, using an old template that made it look like Ethan's original submission. But Preston had been sloppy, left digital footprints. We'll have enough to terminate him by next week, her security chief reported. Good. Make sure HR documents everything. I want this airtight. Isabella hung up, looked at Ethan working at the small desk she'd set up for him in her office. He was frowning at a spreadsheet, pencil tapping against his lip. Problem? She asked. Just reviewing the quarterly projections. These numbers don't account for the new tariffs. We should be calculating at least 15% higher for import costs. He looked up, realized who he was talking to. Sorry, not my place. No, you're right. Isabella pulled up her own copy. I saw that too, but thought I was being paranoid. You have a good eye for detail. 3 jobs worth of practice, Ethan said. When you're counting pennies, you learn to spot discrepancies fast. They worked in comfortable silence for another hour. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face tightening with worry. What's wrong? Isabella asked. Noah's school. He's sick. They need me to pick him up. Go, Isabella said immediately. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know. I want to. Come on. They drove in her car, expensive and sleek, completely impractical for a 7-year-old with the flu, but Ethan was too worried to care about the optics. Noah looked miserable, curled up in the nurse's office, flushed with fever. "Hey, buddy," Ethan knelt beside him. "Not feeling good." "My head hurts," Noah whimpered. "And my tummy." "Let's get you home." Isabella helped them to the car, surprised by the protective surge she felt seeing this small child suffering. At Ethan's apartment, she found herself staying, helping. She'd never been good with sick people, but Noah was easy. He just wanted comfort, stories, someone to bring him water. "Miss Bella?" Noah called when she was in the kitchen getting him juice. "You don't have to call me miss, just Bella is fine." "Bella, that's pretty, like a princess." He gave her a weak smile. "Are you my dad's girlfriend?" Isabella nearly dropped the juice. "No, I'm his boss." "Oh, that's sad. He smiles when he talks about you. He should have a girlfriend who makes him smile." Out of the mouths of babes. "Maybe someday he will." "I hope it's you," Noah said with the brutal honesty of children. "You're nice and you brought me juice." Simple arithmetic to a 7-year-old. Kindness plus juice equals perfect girlfriend material. Ethan returned from getting medicine, saw Isabella sitting with Noah, reading him a story. Something in his chest cracked open. This woman, this powerful CEO, was reading Where the Wild Things Are to his sick son, doing different voices for each character. Noah was laughing despite his fever, and Isabella looked happy, genuinely, freely happy. That night, after Noah fell asleep and Isabella was preparing to leave, Ethan walked her to her car. "Thank you. You didn't have to stay." "I wanted to. He's a great kid. You're doing an amazing job raising him alone." "Most days I feel like I'm failing," Ethan admitted. "Most days I wonder if he'd be better off with a parent who had their life together." "He wouldn't," Isabella said firmly. "He has a parent who loves him absolutely. That's worth more than money or stability. Trust me, I grew up with all the money and stability in the world, but my parents—" She trailed off. "Didn't love you?" Ethan asked gently. "Not the way you love Noah. Not unconditionally. Everything had conditions. Good grades, right career, profitable marriage. Nothing was ever just for me." She looked away. "Sorry, that's not your burden." "It's not a burden to listen," Ethan said. They stood there in the parking lot, two wounded people recognizing each other's scars. And something shifted, something that couldn't be unshifted. Neither of them was ready to name it yet, but they both felt it. Isabella's family, especially her brother, opposed her involvement with a low-level employee. They demanded she fire Ethan and maintain her image. Isabella refused, making the family angry. They investigated Ethan's personal life, made up bad news to sabotage him. One night, Noah became seriously ill. Ethan requested emergency leave. Isabella immediately went to the hospital to help. Isabella's brother saw this, took photos, and leaked them to the press. Near CEO dating low-level employee. Media attacked. The board pressured Isabella to choose, the company or him. Isabella was in pain. "Why do you always want to control my life?" Ethan overheard. His heart ached. He didn't want her to suffer for him. He decided to resign to protect her. As he left, Isabella ran after him, tears falling. "Don't leave me alone." Ethan turned back, voice breaking. "I'm not worthy of your world." Isabella grabbed his hand, saying the words that turned the entire story's emotions. "That world has never made me happy. But you do." The confrontation happened in the Hart family estate, a mansion that represented everything Isabella had grown up hating. Cold marble, expensive art that no one actually looked at, staff who moved like ghosts. Her brother Marcus stood in their father's study, the traditional seat of power. "You're embarrassing us," Marcus said without preamble. "Parading around with some clerk like he's your equal." "He is my equal," Isabella shot back. "He's worth 10 of you. He takes responsibility. He works hard. He's raising a child alone. What exactly have you done besides inherit daddy's money?" "I run the investment division. You rubber stamp decisions other people make. Don't pretend you're irreplaceable." Isabella was done being diplomatic, done pretending her family's opinion mattered. "Ethan stays." "Then you leave," Marcus said coldly. "The board won't tolerate this scandal. You're making us look weak, favoring some nobody because of what?" A crush? Grow up, Isabella. I'm more grown up than you'll ever be. I've built this company into something Dad never dreamed of. And you dare tell me how to run it? The board leaves at my pleasure. I have controlling shares, or have you forgotten? Isabella smiled without warmth. You can't touch me, and you can't touch Ethan. But she was wrong. Marcus had been busy. The tabloids hit the next morning. Photos of Isabella at Ethan's apartment, at the hospital, carefully captioned to imply an affair. The business press was worse, questioning her judgment, suggesting she was too emotional to lead. By noon, 3 board members had called demanding a meeting. Ethan saw the news at the hospital. Noah was being kept overnight for observation. Nothing serious, but they wanted to be safe. His phone exploded with messages. Co-workers expressing shock, some supportive, most judgmental. And his landlord texting that maybe he should find other accommodations given the situation. He was being evicted because of gossip, because he dared to be noticed by someone above his station. The old familiar rage rose up, the same fury he'd felt when his wife died and the universe seemed determined to keep kicking him while he was down. But underneath the rage was fear. Isabella was suffering because of him. He couldn't let that continue. Noah woke from his nap, saw his father's expression. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing, buddy, just grown-up stuff. Is Miss Bella okay? The question broke Ethan's heart. His 7-year-old was worried about Isabella. They'd known her for barely 2 months and she'd already become family. She's fine, she's strong. I know, but even strong people need help sometimes. You told me that. Ethan had said that. When Noah had nightmares about his mother, when he was scared and trying to be brave, Ethan had taught him that asking for help wasn't weakness. And now here he was, about to run away because he was scared. But this wasn't just about him. This was about Isabella's entire career, her reputation, her life's work. Could he really let her sacrifice that for him? The answer felt inevitable. He wrote a resignation letter on his phone, short and professional, submitted it to Audra, then texted Isabella, I'm sorry. She called immediately. What did you do? What I had to. You've done so much for me. I won't let you lose everything because of it. Ethan Ward, you get back here right now. I can't. Noah's in the hospital. I know, I'm downstairs. We're not having this conversation over the phone. She was in the lobby when he got there, still in her business suit, looking like she'd come straight from a meeting. Probably had. You don't get to make this decision alone, she said. It's my decision to make. I'm the problem here. No, my family is the problem. The media is the problem. Society's obsession with class and status is the problem. You're just a man trying to take care of his son. A man who's ruining your life. You're not ruining anything. Isabella's voice cracked. You're the only thing that's made sense in years. My family is toxic. The company is just work. But you and Noah, you make me feel human again. You make me remember why any of this matters. Tears were streaming down her face now, unchecked. I can't watch you give up everything for me, Ethan said desperately. I don't have anything to offer you. I'm broke. I'm barely keeping my head above water. I'm a terrible bet for anyone. I don't want to bet. I don't want a merger or an acquisition or a strategic alliance. I want someone who sees me, really sees me, not what I can do for them. They stood there in the hospital lobby, 2 people who had every reason to walk away choosing to stay. This is going to be hard, Ethan warned. The media, your family, they're not going to stop. I know, but I've fought harder battles, and I've always fought them alone. This time I don't have to. This time you have me, Ethan said, finally understanding. And Noah, if you want us. I want you, Isabella whispered. God help me. I want both of you so much it terrifies me. They kissed there in the lobby, not caring who saw. Let them take pictures. Let them talk. This was real, and real was worth fighting for. Isabella publicly exposed the manager who had pushed the blame onto Ethan. He was suspended and put under investigation. The board of directors saw Isabella had acted correctly, couldn't judge her. She brought Ethan back to the company, this time with a higher position, advisor for improving the work environment. Noah began seeing Isabella as family. She spent time at the small apartment more frequently, learning to cook with the father and son. One afternoon, Noah jokingly asked, "Can Miss Bella be my mom?" Isabella blushed. Ethan nearly dropped the pot. The apartment gradually transformed into a small family full of laughter. Isabella helped Ethan register for a professional training scholarship so he could develop his career. Ethan repaired the broken bookshelf for her, an item she'd kept since childhood. Trust, warmth, and the desire to belong grew between them. The expose was calculated and devastating. Isabella didn't just fire Preston, she made an example of him. Called a company-wide meeting, all meaning, presented the evidence of his fraud, explained how he tried to destroy an innocent employee to cover his own mistakes. Preston was escorted out by security while the entire company watched. "Let this be clear," Isabella announced. "I built this company on integrity. Anyone who violates that will be removed, regardless of how long they've been here or what connections they have. We succeed or fail together, honestly." The applause was genuine. Preston had been widely disliked. His removal was celebrated. For Ethan, it was vindication, but also uncomfortable. Suddenly, everyone knew his story, knew he was the CEO's boyfriend, knew he'd been wronged. People treated him differently. Some with respect, some with suspicion, most with curiosity. He hated being the center of attention. "It'll die down," Isabella assured him. "Next week, someone else will do something scandalous, and you'll be forgotten." "Can't wait," Ethan muttered. She laughed. He loved making her laugh. It transformed her face, made her look years younger. The new position was real, not charity. Isabella had him consulting on workplace culture, talking to employees at all levels, identifying problems. Ethan was good at it. Years of being at the bottom gave him insight the executives lacked. He knew what made people quit, what made them stay, what made them care. He proposed flex time for parents, better child care benefits, actually enforcing the prohibition on after-hours emails. Small changes that dramatically improved morale. Turnover dropped, productivity increased. The board noticed. Ethan was proving his worth independently of his relationship with Isabella. At home, the three of them fell into comfortable rhythms. Isabella came over 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes she stayed late helping Noah with homework. Sometimes she'd arrive with takeout and they'd watch movies. It felt natural, like she'd always been part of their lives. "You're good at this," Ethan told her one night. They were cleaning up after dinner, Noah already in bed. "At what?" "At being here with us. I know it's not what you're used to." "I like it better than what I'm used to," Isabella admitted. "My penthouse is beautiful and empty. This apartment is cramped and full of life. I know which I prefer." She bumped his shoulder. "Even if your cooking is sometimes questionable." "Hey, my spaghetti is excellent." "Your spaghetti is passable. Your lasagna is a war crime." "That was one time. The recipe was unclear." They were laughing, doing dishes like a regular couple, and it hit Ethan that he was happy, genuinely, freely happy for the first time since his wife died. "Isabella?" "Yeah." "Thank you for everything, for believing me, for giving me a chance, for—" He gestured around the kitchen. "For this." "You don't have to thank me." "I do, though. You changed my life." "You changed mine," Isabella said softly. "I was so lonely, Ethan. Successful but lonely. You and Noah, you showed me what I was missing, what I'd convinced myself I didn't need." She kissed him, gentle and sweet. "I love you, both of you." "We love you too," Ethan said. "Noah asks me every day when you're coming back. He's drawing pictures of you constantly." I'm now displayed on my office wall. My board members think I've lost my mind." "Have you?" Ethan teased. "Completely," Isabella agreed, "and I've never been happier about it." The scholarship she'd helped him arrange would start next month. Advanced business management, paid for by a company grant she'd totally not influenced. Ethan was nervous but excited. For the first time in years, he had a future that looked like more than just survival. "What if I fail?" he'd asked when she first told him about it. "Then you try again," Isabella had said. "Failure isn't permanent unless you let it be. You're smart and hardworking. You'll succeed. Her confidence in him was almost frightening, but also empowering. Noah's drawing appeared one morning, taped to the fridge. The three of them holding hands, a house behind them. Above it, in careful letters, my family. Ethan had stared at it for a long time. Isabella had seen it that evening, gone very quiet. Is that okay? Ethan had asked carefully. That he thinks of you as family? It's more than okay, she'd whispered. It's everything. One morning, Isabella came to Ethan's house, saw Noah hanging a new drawing. My family. In it were three people. Ethan, Noah, Isabella. Isabella stood still, hand on her heart. Ethan approached, asked gently, "Are you okay?" Isabella whispered, "I've never been drawn into anyone's family before." Noah pulled her sleeve. "Will you stay with me and Dad?" She knelt down and hugged Noah, tears falling. "If you both will let me." Ethan squeezed her hand. "We've always wanted that." Early sunlight shone through the window. The room seemed to brighten. Isabella smiled, for the first time feeling truly loved. That small family began a new chapter, peaceful but complete. The proposal happened 6 months later, not in some fancy restaurant, but in their apartment. Ethan had been planning something elaborate, but one night watching Isabella teach Noah how to tie his shoes, he realized he couldn't wait anymore. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Isabella looked up, startled. "What?" "Marry me. I don't have a ring yet. I was going to do this properly, but I can't wait. I want you to be official. Want Noah to have a mom. Want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard," Isabella said, but she was smiling, crying and smiling. "Is that a yes?" "That's an absolutely yes. Ring or no ring, fancy dinner or no fancy dinner. Yes." Noah cheered, launched himself at both of them, and they collapsed in a laughing heap. The ring came later, simple band that fit perfectly. The wedding was small, just close friends and a handful of family. Isabella's parents didn't attend, their loss entirely. But Ethan's family came, welcomed her warmly, and that was enough. The apartment got too small eventually. They found a house, nothing fancy but with a yard for Noah and space for Isabella's books. The penthouse she sold donated most of the furniture to charity. Started fresh, built something that was theirs together rather than just hers or his. Noah thrived. Knowing he had a stable family, that Isabella wasn't going anywhere, helped him blossom. He excelled in school, made friends, played soccer. Normal kid stuff that he'd been too anxious to do when it was just him and Ethan barely scraping by. At the company, Ethan continued rising. Not because of Isabella, but in spite of initial doubts about nepotism. He was good at his job, made real improvements, eventually took over an entire division, became the executive he'd never imagined he could be. And Isabella, she softened. Still brilliant, still demanding, but with more patience, more understanding. She started a foundation for single parents, providing resources and support. Named it after Noah, who blushed but was proud. On their one-year anniversary, Isabella stood in their backyard watching Ethan and Noah play catch. Her phone rang. Her father. She'd been avoiding his calls for months. This time she answered. "Hello, Dad." "Isabella, I want to talk about your situation." "My marriage, you mean? My family?" "If you want to call it that." The old dismissiveness. Isabella smiled. "I do call it that. And I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. If you can't accept that, we have nothing to discuss." Silence. Then, "I suppose I could meet them. Your husband and stepson." It wasn't an apology, wasn't acceptance even. But it was a crack in the wall. "We'll see," Isabella said. "I'll think about it." She hung up, walked over to her family. Ethan saw her face, raised an eyebrow. "All good?" "Perfect," Isabella said, and meant it. She had everything she needed right here. Everything that mattered. The white balm, the money, the status. It was all window dressing. This, them, was real. Was home. If you believe healing stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Strong Dad Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.